In today's media-enabled world, you have instant access to audiences to share your story. Startup competitions, emails, videos, Insta stories, blog posts, newsletters, you name it, a lot of options out there. One thing to keep in mind is that the majority of these mediums and formats are designed for shorter format stories. Hence, it's important to have a shorter version of your story ready at all times. On top of that, audiences generally prefer short stories because they don't take up that much time, they're easier to digest, easier to remember, and more likely to get shared as is, as opposed to some convoluted version of the long story that you initially told them. Now, if you feel that your story is too long or just too cumbersome and you want a surefire way to shorten your story, I've got one method that I'm particularly fond of because it's very effective, it's fun to use, and it's a good creative exercise for the mind. Plus, it came to me by way of redecorating my house a number of years ago. Hi, I'm Lynn Graff, founder of Storytelling for Entrepreneurs, where we help founders leverage the power of story to launch and grow their business. And I call this particular exercise the blank canvas method. Years back, when I'd been living in my house for a while, I started to get a little bit tired of the feel and the look of a few rooms in my house. I decided it was time to redo them and bring some fresh energy and character into my pad. So I went out and I got some new furniture, artwork, and other decor items that really spoke to me and that I wanted in my house. But I was having a hard time coming up with the layout and design that hit the mark for me with all the other stuff that was already in there as I kept rearranging and trying to redo it. So I asked one of my best friends, a former architect, natural-born designer, because I really liked her style and how she had done her place. I figured she would come over and help me keep rearranging things I had been doing for a number of hours. Instead, she made me take everything out of the room, artwork and all, so that we could look at the existing space as it was with nothing in there. Then she asked me about the furniture that I bought, the artwork and the accent pieces that I just acquired, and then everything else that I already had in there as it was outside those rooms. Once we went through everything, slowly, one by one, she started bringing the items into the room and carefully placing them in the space to complement the room, and then as the other items were added to complement each other. At first, it was a bit annoying, but I soon went with the flow and began to see the beauty in her approach. After a few cycles, the rooms really started to come together much better than I had planned. I love the way she had done it. The room and the furniture is a great analogy to the assets you have for your story that are ultimately going to help you create a best short version of your story. And this is the process we want to replicate when it comes to shortening your story. Now, for the sake of this video, let's assume that you already have a story in some rough draft format that you can start with. Step one, you want to start with that blank canvas. You want to have a blank sheet of paper, a blank whiteboard, a flip chart, a new document such as a Word or PowerPoint document. This is functionally and symbolically important because we are starting with a clean slate, much like the empty room that my best friend had me do. Step two is you want to use some type of framework to put structure to that blank canvas, if you will. It's important to have this framework when you're doing this, but otherwise you're just going to be throwing things randomly in the room that aren't going to necessarily make sense as it pertains to your story. Now, at Storytelling for Entrepreneurs, we use the SOFI framework that is specifically designed for entrepreneurs and the business environment that you operate in. But you can use any framework that you're familiar with, and if you don't have one, just simply use the three-act structure made famous by our Greek friend Aristotle: the beginning, the middle, and the end. Next, you are very selectively, one by one, put items into the framework, and you've been very, very picky about what goes in there, much like my best friend had me do when I chose only my favorite things that I wanted to go into the room, regardless if it was old or new, meaning you want to only put the things that really pertain and are meaningful to your story. And this can be phrases, it can be sentences, but you want to stay away from paragraphs or long format things. Remember, we're trying to do a short version of your story. Step four, once you've done that, is this first pass you want to read over and make sure it makes sense, to the point that a stranger should be able to read what you pieced together and it reads kind of like a story, at least the foundation for one. Lastly, after this first pass, you want to start adding fillers to your story so it really starts to make sense. I recommend at this stage, you stop before you feel it's completely done. That way, it's kind of like that fifth piece of pizza. You don't want to eat it because you're going to feel blah the next day. You want to keep it short and tight. It's going to feel a little awkward, but you're not trying for a Pulitzer Prize story here. You're going for a super short version of your story that only has the best of the best elements from that original story, so it's nice and short and tight. Now you're going to have some refining to do to really get it ready for prime time. But either way, it's a great exercise I like taking founders through because it forces you to really tighten up and shorten your story and use only the best elements of your story. Try it out. Let me know how it works in the comments below. Thanks for watching. One funny thing I want to share with you about this particular exercise, I was going to call it the empty the room exercise instead of the blank canvas exercise. So I called my friend to let her know that, ask her if she thought that was kind of cool. She goes, oh no, you don't want to call it empty the room because some people are going to get the wrong meaning of what that stands for. I'm like, oh, now I get it. So it is now called blank canvas instead of empty the room. Thanks, Ingrid, for that.